Up and running on the podcast for InGoal Magazine. InGoal Mag, use whatever abbreviation you want, but we're very happy to be here. I'm Daren Millard, 20 years at Sportsnet, and now I've dived into the podcast world and extremely pumped up to be joining the likes of Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison for this podcast venture about goaltending. It's goaltenders. We're talking about goaltending equipment. We're talking about styles. We're talking about approaches, whether it be nutrition, training exercises. But it's basically by goaltenders, for goaltenders, but available to everybody as we try to broaden the scope of goaltending and make sure that all needs are taken care of. I'm in the InGoal Magazine studio along with David Hutchison, and Kevin Woodley is somewhere out and about at an arena near you. Where are you, pal?
Rogers Arena, where the Vancouver Canucks will host the Tampa Bay Lightning, and dare I say the best goaltender in the NHL tonight, Andrei Vasilevsky.
Looking forward to that. Just some background. We are all goaltenders. Hutch, how long have you played the position and your passion for it?
Well, Daren, it's been a long time. I got started around 1970 or 71 as a 5 or 6 year old in Ontario. Played minor hockey all the way up till I had a very tiny cup of coffee in university. But realized when I was firmly ensconced in fourth on the depth chart, interestingly, behind now Toronto Marley and former Arizona goaltending coach John Elkin, I realized that my time was done. I think I've probably got a slightly different route to where we are today than you do or than Kevin does. But you know what they say, all roads lead to beer league, and that's what we're all enjoying doing now. My passion, though, I would say lies in teaching and coaching. I've been coaching for quite a number of years, and I'm also a teacher by trade, and I've got a bit of a background in technology as well. So I think those things all sort of came together in my interest in getting InGoal off the ground. And I also bring a perspective as a goaltending parent to this group. I've got a talented young peewee goaltender in our house who's far better than I ever was, and he's really enjoying playing, and I enjoy getting out on the ice with him as well. So I think it's going to be a fun ride here, guys, and I'm looking forward to it.
So you were Turk Broda's first backup?
Something like that, yeah, almost. I like to think Johnny Bauer, but that's okay.
Turk's a good Brandon boy. And how about you, Woodley?
I am I'm the new school guy in this equation. Believe it or not, I didn't start playing until I was 35 years old, and I did so because I was editing a goaltending magazine, or I was asked to edit a goaltending magazine by then Vancouver Canucks, and now again Vancouver Canucks goaltending coach Ian Clark. He used to run a company called GDI, and they had a monthly magazine. And so you start editing and sort of reading all the technical breakdowns, and then start speaking to goaltenders in their language. And nobody was really doing that at the time in the NHL, and it opened up a whole new world to me. And I figured, hey man, I gotta strap the pads on and try this. And like all of us, I just fell in love with the position, all the nuances, and being the guy. That's I think why we all play is right, so we can be the guy that decides whether you win or lose on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I'm 48 and a half, and I started when I was 7 years old. Put up my arm to play goal when the coach asked, and my dad put it down, so I put up the other arm, and lo and behold, the coach saw me. So, I'm right there with Hutch when it comes to playing goal for a long time. I'm really excited about the Woodley part of it because you sort of joined late in the sense of learning the position as an adult. What did you find, because I can't remember, what did you find as the hardest part when you transitioned in?
Oh, I think it's interesting. I actually found it, I don't want to say easy because my beer league team would say I don't make it look easy very often. But after reading all the technical stuff, it was really interesting. This is like around 2003, 2004, and some of the things that back then were not an every goalie technique in the NHL, because there were still old school guys that hadn't learned it. I started with that foundation. So something that, believe it or not, and younger listeners will find this shocking, but that's not that long ago. And there was still about half the NHL that didn't get up out of the butterfly with proper leg recovery. So if they were moving left, they didn't by default get up on their right leg, or vice versa. They got up usually on their strong leg. And so it was kind of interesting to have learned everything from a modern technical standpoint. That was what I learned first. That's how I learned. And then to sort of be talking to, like I said, at the time, NHL guys, some NHL stars, guys like Curtis Joseph that, until very late in their career, nobody had ever shown them proper leg recovery. And now, back then you'd go to a camp and 12-year-olds did it. but there were guys in the NHL that didn't. And now, any goalie that's, started since me in the last 15 years will be like, hey, that's the first thing they teach us. So, I don't know that I found anything difficult from a technical standpoint, and that made it an easy transition. To me, it was the reading blades, reading sticks, the stuff that actually makes goalies good beyond technique, the stuff that I've tried to learn as much as I can about from the NHL guys, because to me, that's the separator. You can learn technique, you can teach technique. It's the innate instinctual stuff. I didn't have that in my back pocket growing up playing goal, and I would argue there are times where I can be okay technically, but I still don't have that sort of raw read and react type ability that you see so spectacularly at the highest level.
So that was early 2000s. I remember having Ray Emery on our show, and that was during his Ottawa days, and he was explaining to me how he was going through that process of learning how to get up on the right with the right leg. And I had never heard that before. That was so new. I had no idea that it had advanced to that stage. So a little bit of synergy there. Hutch, are you born and bred?
Sorry, I was just going to say that, at least he had the benefit of a goaltending coach working with him while he was doing that, whereas guys like you and I just have to sort of watch technique evolve on TV and hope we can apply it to our game because, of course, beer leaguers don't practice very often, do we?
Well, warm-up is what, 4 shots, 5 shots, and usually 2 of those are coming at the same time, so it doesn't serve much of a purpose at that. Eric Lindros runs a skate in Toronto a couple of times a week. He does drills before they start their scrimmage. I actually stopped going, 1, because of the commute, and 2, I just don't want to do drills. I can't do drills anymore. My hips are just, I can stand there for a while, but I don't want to do drills. So Hutch and Woodley, before we get too far into this, and I know that that Woodley brought a clip here from Andre Vasilevsky, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who has had such a marvelous run here under John Cooper and company. But some background on InGoal Magazine. The website is something we've all goaltenders of a certain age and now have been following on the website and on Instagram. But give us a little bit of synopsis of what you guys want to bring via the podcast, and we'll start with Hutch.
Started in 2009 as a little bit of a hobby, and got really lucky when this guy Kevin Woodley gave me a phone call because he was sitting center ice for all the hockey games at the 2010 games. And he had a real passion for the position and experience that is huge. And he basically said to me, you're doing what I've always wanted to do, but I'm not really sure how to get started at it. And on the other hand, I'm in the dressing room with these guys and you're not, so maybe there's something we can do if we put our heads together. And that's sort of what really was the foundation of InGoal. And we started feeding some fantastic stories from the Olympics that were very specific to the position. That weren't necessarily something you'd see in mainstream media, and that got us going. And Kevin, you got a really good story. I think the Luongo story is a great example of something that got us going.
Yeah, no, and actually I came to it. You're right, Hutch. You started everything, and I found it online. And the aforementioned magazine that Ian Clark had started and got me into goaltending by that point had become.
What was that magazine?
Called Goalie News. And it was a newsprint edition, and I think peak readership was around 10,000. And I can tell you from some of the names and the addresses of the subscriber list back then, some of the bigger names in goalie coaching world. There were some Allaires on that list that subscribed to that magazine back in the day. But ambition for the company, trying to get into the equipment industry, didn't go so well, and the magazine went to side with pretty much the rest of the company. So lo and behold, I ended up running or finding Hutch, and just as I was about to cover the Olympics, and yeah, we did. I think the Luongo story is one that kind of touches on what we're trying to do, and that's to ask questions that nobody else is asking of goaltenders and bring the answers to our goaltending audience. And prime example would be, I think we probably all remember it if you watched the 2010 game, semifinal game against then teammate Pavel Dimitra from Slovakia. 3-2 game, dying seconds. Dimitra wide open at the bottom of the left circle. Luongo sprawling across, reaches out with the glove and just gets it on the sort of upper corner of what we would call the cheater, and just an incredible save. And who knows if Canada wins the gold if that goes in. Would have gone to overtime and possibly a shootout, which weren't his strengths back then, for the right to go play the USA in the gold medal game. And so go beyond the save. And to me, that was to ask Roberto, because I knew heading in, he was wearing a Reebok one-piece cuff glove with the Canucks, and he had broken in a Reebok one-piece cuff glove for the Olympics, but was quickly told by the IIHF that that was not legal. At the time, under their rules, you had to have a two-piece glove, and so he was forced to switch. And if you know those old original Reebok, original Premier one, the sort of that first one piece, I guess not Premier 1, but Premier 2, it kind of rounded down from the thumb a little bit. And so basically just went and asked him, like, hey, if you're wearing the glove you intended to wear at these Olympics, does that puck hit the cup? And his frank answer was no. And so to me, there's a piece of hockey and goaltending history that doesn't happen if not for that, largely unknown change in equipment mandated by the IIHF. And hey, it's the minutia to me that sort of separates our interest in goaltending, like the details, the gear, the technique, those types of things. And what we want to do at InGoal and here with the InGoal Radio Podcast is take you in the room and ask those questions and get those answers from the best in the game.
That's crazy. That's at the same rink that you're going to tonight to watch the Tampa Bay Lightning against the Vancouver Canucks. And you've got some great goaltending stories here with everybody trying new equipment, including Vasilevsky, who's broken out a new set. You posted some great video on Instagram of Vasilevsky in the showdown for those of us of a certain age, where he was just so calm and cool. But your interaction with Vasilevsky.
Well, I think it kind of ties in nicely to what we were talking about. I had 12 minutes with him on a practice day, so there's lots of little tidbits that we'll roll out. But I think just as the example, why did we all start in goal? And it was funny to hear him talk about it because it wasn't for the same reasons we started. And it's kind of ironic now listening back to hear what got him into the game compared to where he is now.
I played forward for a couple of years, probably when I was 8 or 9, something like that. But I told Dad that it's too tough to skating that much, and I want to just stay in the bullpen and make the save. He said, "Oh, all right, go try it." But now I understand that it's much harder than to be a player, right?
Be careful what you wish for, right? I'm going to go do that because it's easy, and then this.
Well, in the background, of course, is that his dad was a professional goaltender in Russia and actually still, I believe just a couple of years ago, was coaching in the MHL, sort of the minor league affiliate of the KHL in Ufa. So he comes from a long lineage, and I guess maybe he thought it was back in the old days, right, where they put the out-of-shape kid into net. He thought it might be a little easier back then, but to see this guy now, I mean, physical specimen, like I said, arguably one of the best in the game. To see the work he puts in, balance, strength, power. The nickname is Big Cat, and he is all that when you get to watch him perform. And we'll roll out some of the other tidbits that he dropped on us in that interview. And
you know what surprises me about him is his age. I keep thinking, because they had that run to the final against Chicago, that he's older than he is, and I'm continually reminding myself that he's in his early 20s.
Yeah, and he's also, in a way, sort of because of his skill level, no team wants to sort of just say, let's try this, because I think everybody around the league realizes how special he is as an athlete and as a goaltender, and as a pro, disciplined at a young age, which probably comes from that background with his dad. Talking to the goalie coaches in Ottawa, ironically, who work with him every summer, and he still goes there, Charlie McTavish being one of them. This is a guy who, even in his late teens, if they were a couple minutes late to get out the door in the summer for a skate, he was there waiting, like just fully committed, stretching when he had to stretch, doing all the things physically that he had to do, and you kind of realize what goes into it. But at the age he's succeeding at, you kind of wonder, on a night when we're about to see Carter Hart make his debut and everybody's saying, oh, it's too soon. The NHL is getting younger and younger, skilled players, skilled defensemen, getting opportunities. at what point do we ask the question amid sort of the stereotype that goalies take longer? Are some of these kids could they be ready earlier, and are we doing them a disservice by not giving them a look sooner and continuing to run with more of a known commodity in veterans when there's such a talent base waiting to come up behind them?
Hutch, your opinion on that?
Yeah, and it also makes me think about the the old adage that you shouldn't ever draft a goaltender in the first round. But I think we know that when you start looking late into the first round, the success at drafting goaltenders is about the same as it is any position. So I think conventional wisdom, it's well worth looking at conventional wisdom and seeing if there's another way to go. That said, I don't know if a 20-year-old goaltender or a 30-year-old goaltender wants to make his debut in the NHL behind the Flyers.
That's logical. I think that would be under the category of obvious when it comes to concerns.
It is, but I think at the end of the day, we can't lump these guys into one pile. Every goaltender is an individual, and we need to understand how that individual can adapt to the situation. So obviously, the folks in Philadelphia have decided that Carter Hart has the right mental makeup to take this on at such a young age.
Well, it's funny. There's some cities, though, that are just goalie graveyards. Vancouver, for the longest time, was that way.
That's because we run all the good ones out of town.
Yeah. And I don't know whether there's something to that because of the media, because it was really dire straits in Vancouver, and we know that in Philadelphia. I mean, Pelle Lindbergh was a Vezina Trophy candidate or winner who broke onto the scene, and then Ron won a Vezina Trophy. But since then, it's been I don't know whether it just becomes its own little story or what, but it's been really south.
Well, like everything, it's all magnified when you're between the posts and everybody sees every mistake. I would argue that it's probably equally as difficult to break in at any position. Again, if you're not looking at the top 5 draft picks, but everything's magnified between the posts for all of us, isn't it?
Woodley?
Well, I was just going to say, to go back to Hutch's point about do you want to break in at 20 or 30 behind the Philadelphia Flyers, I got to be honest, guys. At 45, I had my hand up in the press box the other night when Anthony Stolarz didn't come out. I was hoping they'd swap me in for the E-Bug and we'd have the dream come true. Scott Foster, look out.
Who is the emergency backup there? Or, well, they have a few, but did you try out or did you look at that?
No, I wouldn't want to embarrass myself like that. Ryland Toth was the guy who was here the other night. They rotate through, and this started when Alex Auld was the goaltending coach with the University of British Columbia Thunderbirds. They would rotate sort of his three goalies through on any given night. And so it's whoever happens to be in the building when they need one, and it was Ryland Toth, who played 3 years in the Western League and is now at UBC. He got the call the other night, and I think a lot of people did. We would get into this one day. We'll talk about E-Bugs. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, why isn't he on the bench? Why isn't he coming to the bench?" I don't think a lot of people realize that unless the second goaltender gets hurt, as was the case in that Scott Foster game, you basically get called out of the stands where you're watching the game as a E-Bug. You go down into the tunnel where your gear's been waiting since before the game, and you get dressed. But you don't sign the contract, and you don't go to the bench unless the second goalie gets hurt, because there's always the chance. Stolarz went out in the first period. If he signed that Flyers contract, they have the jersey sitting right there, they have the contract right beside him. But if he were to sign it, and then by the third period, both Canucks goaltenders go down, and he's signed with the Philadelphia Flyers, he's no longer eligible to bail out to the Vancouver Canucks. So I think in a lot of situations, I know there's another one the next night where a goaltender got hurt, and everyone's like, "Where's the E-Bug? Let's see him on the bench. Let's get that shot." Well, it doesn't happen for a reason. They don't bring him in until the second guy actually goes down.
It's InGoal Magazine, the podcast, and it's by goalies, for goalies, but available to everybody. So E-Bug is the acronym for Emergency Backup Goalie. That's what it is? Okay, good. When you guys didn't jump in right away, I thought, gee, I was kind of just throwing it out there to make sure that everybody knew that, and then I thought I screwed it up. Your favorite goaltender of all time, favorite goaltender today, and then we'll wrap up this episode 1 just to get it out there and let everybody know what's coming on the InGoal Magazine podcast. So start with you, Hutch.
Well, it's got to be Ken Dryden, my favorite goaltender of all time, simply because he was playing in the finals in 1971 when I took up the game, and my parents always held him up to me as as a real example because he was an academic as well as a goaltender. So I loved following his career when I was younger, and got the chance to meet him a little bit later on when I was helping out with a team that his son was playing on. And but today it's that's a lot harder for me to answer. We're really privileged to get to know a lot of guys, and so I think I enjoy all of them for a whole lot of reasons. Carey Price is obviously everybody's high on everybody's list, and I was reminded what a great guy he is just seeing on Twitter today about the story about how he had responded after the game last night, both in terms of how upset he was about his performance and the team's performance, but then immediately was outside the dressing room greeting a young fan, showing that he goes well beyond the game. So for that reason, I think he'd be high on my list, but as I said, so many guys for so many reasons. I'm just a fan of the position now.
I just loved throwing the puck to the kid in Chicago last week, and then eventually got him a stick because the puck wouldn't go over the netting. How about you, Woodley?
Yeah, for the same reason as Hutch, I think it's hard. Like, I didn't grow up as a goaltender, so I don't have one from my childhood. I was told as a child I cried once when we went to a Canucks game, which was a special treat for me, and Richard Brodeur wasn't starting, but Glenn Hanlon was. I don't remember it, but I'm told there were tears, so they must have been, even before I was a goaltender, I must have enjoyed the position. So I'd probably go with Roberto Luongo, who obviously was here in Vancouver for a long stretch while I was covering the team, and just a guy that I really enjoy as a person and as a goaltender, and who I really admire for the work he puts into his craft. And I think that's why he's had the longevity he has, because he's always looking for the next edge, whether it's equipment or technique or just the work he puts in. It's a guy who wore out the bottom of his pool, literally wore the tiles off the bottom of a pool, trying to do water running recovery from hip surgery a couple of years ago so he can still play at this age. And I just love his passion for the game, and I love talking about the position with him. So he's probably my favorite. Right now, like I said, I'm going to have to talk. I'm going to get to talk to Andre Vasilevsky again tonight after the game. So as a guy who's popping into these locker rooms all the time, I better say his name first and foremost.
Yeah, he is just, and he's big. He's just a big dude. Both guys there, Roberto Luongo. Mine was Bernie Pront, and then Pete Peters, because the Flyers. I was a Flyers fan, and then he went on to win a Vezina with the Boston Bruins. And I can't get enough of watching Jonathan Quick. Just the way he bounces around, and for the freak factor of those hips and the way he slides all over the place, it's really cool to watch. Just too much fun. Like Grant Fuhr was just, he was all over the place, and the like. So we'll talk to goalie coaches, we'll talk to goalies, and we'll talk to a lot of gear people as well, because I'm a gearhead. I can't get enough of it. The guys in Hockey Central always make fun of me because I talk to goalies and I ask them about their gear, and they just couldn't get that. So anything I'm leaving out here that you guys want to promote before we sign off on this promotional podcast?
No, I think the only thing I'd like to add is, like, we'll have a lot more of what you heard from Andre Vasilevsky. As much as this was an introduction to get to know us, we promise we won't always talk about ourselves. We'll bring you, the goal here is to take you inside the room as listeners. And I believe the relationships we've formed around the league with goalie coaches and NHL goaltenders and the access we have will allow us to do that. And that means also bringing questions into those locker rooms from you, the readers. So keep an eye out on the social media channels to look for your opportunities to submit questions for a lot of these guys, and then we'll bring the answers back to you.
I think bringing people inside the locker room, the fact that that these guys, even in the NHL, I think they've got a different relationship with the goaltending fan than the average fan. They love talking about their craft as well, and there's countless stories that we've shared over the years of going in to talk to these guys and them not being very interested in speaking to the media on that particular day, but then Kevin just says, "Oh, I'm with InGoal Magazine." "Oh, well, come on in, sit down, let's have a chat." They love to talk about their craft. They love to talk with the average goaltending fan about what they do. Just they're another goalie like all of us, and we want to be able to share that experience with everybody.
And they're all the same, right? Somebody gets a new set of gear. Everybody's looking for it, trying to figure out what color pattern, what graphics are on there, and then you go to the masks and right on through it. So we're looking forward to it. It's the InGoal Magazine podcast. Follow it on Instagram as well, InGoal Magazine, and the website, InGoalMagazine.com. For Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison, I'm Daren Millard. We'll talk to you again on InGoal Mag, the podcast.